To defy the odds, you have to risk everything and take chances. At Old Nation Brewing Company, we did just that. From an unknown startup brewery to standing alongside national craft brands in just under a decade, we remain one of the last of the large, independently owned breweries in Michigan. Our beer is respectfully brewed using only the highest quality ingredients, and we don't cut corners. With the times changing for everyone, one thing that stays the same is Old Nation's respect for great beer and the people who love it. We're growing in cans produced and fans made. When you taste our beer, you'll know why.
Never realized we needed Roy Lopez sound, but there it is if you need it. All right.
Losing by 4.
Okay. Let's get into it. David has a presentation. No, and I'm not talking about this. We're talking about he did some data research, and he wants to show the class. So we've all had these conversations about the Lions and their approach and let Brad cook and all in versus draft, develop, and sign. So David, instead of studying the Bible last night, David really dug into the numbers. And I said, why the hell am I going to present this? It's your work. Rock and roll. So here's America's pastor, David Hall.
You're right. I did some research here. And what made me think was you mentioned Seattle yesterday as an example, homegrown, things like that. Well, sure. But they also traded for Marshawn Lynch and eventually got to the Super Bowl. And you start looking down the line. I'll just start from last year's Super Bowl. You got the Eagles. Of course, we know that was a Saquon Barkley move. That was a gutsy move. They made that move. And I'm going to ignore the Chiefs for a second because people say, oh, well, they got Patrick Mahomes. I'll get to that down the line. 49ers traded for Christian McCaffrey. And in that year when they traded for Christian McCaffrey, they were a quarterback injury away from making the Super Bowl that year. And that was a mid-season trade. They were 3-3. They were struggling and said Christian McCaffrey, and they changed it around and made the NFC title game.
Yeah, they won like 9-10 in a row,
Correct.
I believe.
Correct. Would have been in that Super Bowl if it wasn't for the quarterback, but eventually they made it the next season. Then you go back to the Eagles again, and they traded for A.J. Brown the year before that and made the Super Bowl. The Rams, we all know what they did, effed them picks. Matthew Stafford, they went out. And then mid-season, because everyone remembers the Matthew Stafford trade, everyone says that's the move. That's what did it. No. At the deadline, they traded for Von Miller. They went all in, traded more picks, and got Von Miller, and that defense was even better in the second half of that year. So let me give you the example of the Chiefs here, because, yes, they have Patrick Mahomes, and we always talk about you got Superman. When you got Superman, it doesn't matter what you do. But they didn't always have Superman. They had to make the bold move to get up and trade to 10, from 27 to 10, to get Superman in that draft. And ever since then, no one expected Patrick Mahomes to be what he is, but they were bold enough to say, that's our guy, and you've been rewarded because of that. They have constantly been in the AFC title game since then, gave up on Alex Smith. They were 12-4 the year before they drafted Patrick Mahomes. They weren't a struggling team. They were in the playoffs with Alex Smith, winning 12 games. Went bold and said, Alex, you can't do it. Patrick can. Then changed force.
I do remember that.
So you have to make moves. You have to be bold to be a Super Bowl team. And yes, not every team on this list, not every team that's made moves has made the Super Bowl. Think of the Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill. Well, that didn't quite work. But they believed that it would have worked, and they went for it. There are other teams out there that said, I think this is going to work, and it may not have worked. It's not always going to work. But for these teams, making bold moves is the exact reason why they made the Super Bowl.
So here's the problem. Everything you said is right, and it falls in line with the things we've talked about. But I don't know what the bold move is for the Lions, because the bold move will have to come in the form of a trade. This is a terrible free agent crop. Now, look, if they had signed DeMarcus Lawrence or if they had signed an interesting defensive lineman, okay, we could have that conversation, but they didn't. And, look, I wouldn't have balked if they spent money at D-tackle. I mean, do we know Aleem McNeil's going to be ready to roll? I doubt it. A 300-plus pound man has another catastrophic leg injury in December. You're not Adrian Peterson, age 21. So, yeah, I mean,
good call.
For me, I don't know when Aleem will be back. The bottom line is the Bengals aren't being sensible. Teams are reported to pay what Hendrickson wants. So here's my thing. Forget about the draft compensation for a second. No one's going to give the Bengals what they're asking for right now, nor should Brad Holmes. But to David's point about boldness, Rico, can we all get on the same page?
Okay, because I got an idea, but let me see what you got to say.
My idea is probably dumb, and it's wondering if all Lion fans could just agree it's not pick 28 that you're giving up. Would you give Trey Hendrickson 3 years, $90 million fully guaranteed? Is that the bold move that puts you into your best Super Bowl self? Trey Hendrickson, opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Just work with me that you won't give up pick 28. Would you do the deal?
I would do the deal because, that would be bold move. And for everybody's, before you call up 248-539-9797 and say, well, what about paying Hutch and Branch and all that?
God, Jesus,
by the time you hit that final year of his contract, if you front load it right, it won't be a problem. Not at all. Especially with the cap going up, Mike, absolutely I would. The only caveat to this is I would do this, but the Bengals sound like they are just being some complete Richards, and they just want way too much. So if you're not – they're going to ask for that pick 28. They're going to ask for a lot of different things.
Not getting it.
My bold move, and David kind of touched upon it with the Chiefs. Maybe the bold move is you don't pick at 28. Maybe the bold move is you identify a defensive edge rusher early in the draft and you move up to a 10 spot to make sure you get that person.
Okay, but here's this is the issue I take with this. I mean, it's fun and it's certainly interesting. Rico, I don't care who you take. You're drafting a rookie, the odds are going to be great or very low versus grown.
No, Mike, I understand, but we all know Brad loves to wheel and deal when it comes to the draft, and maybe he sees his next Jahmyr Gibbs as, hey, I don't think people really know how good this guy is going to be. Let's move up some spots. Hey, there's a JMO. He's going to be good. Let's move up some spots to get him. Hey, maybe there's this rush edger. Let's go get him. Let's move up. Let's get out of 28, and let's move to 12 and go get this guy. I think as the days progress with free agency.
Free agency's over.
I'm beginning to feel like, right, because right now you're at the clearance rack of free agency.
But I never wanted free agency. You know this.
I know. And I don't think the trade is going to happen because I think the asking price for Henderson
Well,
is
case in point. Where were they on a Jonathan Allen? Where were they on a guy to reinforce the D-line via free agency that isn't necessarily an edge? But look, I think they have needs at D tackle. Do you know who else agrees with me?
Right.
TJ Lang.
Right, but Jonathan Allen coming off the injury, is that where you really want to invest the money?
Oh, hell, that should have gave Brad a boner.
As soon as I said it. You know what? Kenny, have you ever said something and just wish you could just take it right back as soon as I said it?
Roberts.
Still don't know why you did that day. Yes, but I'm starting to think now that they are going to address this in the draft because I don't know if there's a trade to be made that to go and get someone.
To me, it's Trey Hendrickson or bust if there's going to be a bold move. I'm not, hey, you want to make a draft night deal? I'll never thumb my nose at it. Sure.
So a guy who's up in age, but would you go for a 1 or 2 year deal with Calais Campbell?
He's 1,000.
I said he's up in age.
I mean, sure, but I'm doing everything. That's the difference. I'm bringing him in and Hendrickson.
Okay.
These people who act like, technically, there's not enough cap space. You're an idiot.
I don't know if I want to get you a coffee or leave you like this the whole show.
They're like that kid Milhouse on The Simpsons. Well, technically, there's not enough cap space. Yes, there is. You adjust a contract. You could fart in the wind and open up $10 million in space.
But let me ask you this, because
technically, David,
part of a GM's job is to look ahead, not just think about what's currently in front of you in free agency or the draft.
I got the best seat in the house, David. Go ahead.
I just hate those people.
Go ahead, David.
But your job is to look ahead. So let's look back a little bit. Did he miss his opportunity last offseason when not trading for Brian Burns? Like, you got to look ahead and say, well, next year's free agent class really don't look that great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Giants didn't even give up a first-round pick.
Right.
And I know what's coming next. Yes, the Giants are poop. However, do you understand that Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau were the number 2 pass rush duo in the league on pass rush win rate?
Oh, no.
Behind Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. So, yes, my team is awful stinky ass, but it ain't Brian Burns and Thibodeau's fault.
No, David, I hear what you're saying. And yes, sometimes you have to have that forward thinking. They didn't. They saw we got this right now, and maybe their big plan is let's wait for the price to come down and you go bring back Zadarius Smith.
I can't wait till they hand Kirby Joseph $20 million a year. That's going to be exciting.
You know what's going to happen.
I know. I've just given up.
But I don't think that it was almost like they weren't prepared to be this good this fast, and they didn't know what to do, that next move to get them to that final level. We got this great offense, I know, but guess what? The offense got you there. The defense is going to win you a title.
Well, and you like Rico's bold move? A draft night deal up? Or do you like mine? Draft night, the Bengals come to their senses. You go and get Trey Hendrickson. It just won't be pick 28. 3 years, $90 million. I don't know. Move a few contracts around. Who cares? You choose your adventure. And I'm fine if you go, look, Brad's the greatest drafter in the history of football. I'd rather move up, go draft player you can't name and have never watched. God bless. I'll take the guy who has 35 sacks the last 2 years.
I'm just saying, all of a sudden, there's Mason Graham sitting right there.
You stop it. Now that's exciting.
Right,
he is
but
not getting to 10 or 12.
I've seen a lot of mock drafts where he falls to 11.
Why do people not like Mason Graham? He's fantastic.
It's not that they don't like him. It's just other people are rising up.
Well, those people are bad people.
So he could fall to 11 if he wants.
539-9797. We'll get some ticket texts and more next. 97.1.